Farm Day, everybody. My guest today is Wendy Shoemaker, and she is the County Executive Director of the Defiance County Farm Service Agency. And I had to write this down so I didn't mess it up, which we just call FSA. And then Jason Rorick, he's the Administrator of Defiance Soil and Water Conservation District, so I will turn it over to them.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and get the projector set up, and then
She's getting that ready. Like Roy said, my name is Wendy Shoemaker, and I'm the County Executive Director for the Defiance County Farm Service Agency. I've been employed by FSA for about 11 years. I spent the last 11 years in Tuscarawas County, Ohio. If you know where that is, it's about 4 hours east of here. Went into a management training program, and here I am. So I've been in Defiance County since January. Happy to be here. Just trying to learn everybody's names and faces and what they do. Because agriculture here is a little different from agriculture over there. So just to get started a little bit, some ag statistics. I don't know if we can read that, but the food and agriculture is Ohio's top industry, contributing $105 billion to the economy and providing jobs to 1 in 7 people. That could be farmers, that could be farm workers, anybody. Ohio is home to nearly 75,000 farms. Ohio farmers grow 200 different kinds of crops and livestock. Ohio ranks first in the nation in Swiss cheese production. I can tell you most of that comes from eastern Ohio and Holmes County. And in 2015, Ohio actually led the nation in the production of the soft red winter wheat, which is one of the wheats they use when making like your cookies and cakes and things like that. So, a little bit of history about the Farm Service Agency. The United States Department of Agriculture was created in 1862 by Abraham Lincoln, and he referred to the USDA as the People's Department. In the 1930s, we kind of separated out, had several different names, but what we know now as the Farm Service Agency, the ASCS. There's also different agencies, the Forest Service, might be a couple other ones, another one that you're familiar with, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, also in Defiance County. What we do is farm programs that are set aside from the Farm Bill. So when you hear them talking about the Farm Bill, it's a 5-year bill. It ends in 2018. They've started discussion on the next Farm Bill. We won't really discuss that because who knows where it is right now as far as the process. So that's how we were formed. In the 1930s, when they set up the system for the farmers, that was when the Dust Bowl was going on. So erosion became a problem, air quality, water quality, all of those things. The Dust Bowl had a big impact. So I'm going to go over 5 different programs that we offer, probably the most popular things that we have in Defiance County. The first one is the Agricultural Risk Coverage, Price Loss Coverage Programs. These programs, the RCO program is a revenue loss at the county level. Payments are triggered when the county crop revenue is less than the guaranteed calculated. So it doesn't really matter if you as a farmer can sell your grain at a higher rate. It's if the county, at the county level, if the prices are lower, payments are triggered, then people will get payments based on that. It's a government subsidy to help with low crop prices, things like that. The PLC, farmers had an opportunity to choose if they wanted RCO or if they wanted PLC. PLC provides price protection, which is the difference between the reference price and the effective price. But these payments are not guaranteed. So they may or may not get payments depending on the market. Right now for 2016, we had, I put 2016, there's 1,865 farms with contracts approved in 2016. And with that, approximately 1,046 producers are sharing in a contract. When I say producer, that could be the owner of a farm who has a share in a crop. It could be the farm operator. So as a landowner, 2016, this is only in Defiance County, okay? $6.6 million. But when you look at that over the whole, the 1,800 contracts, I think that's only about $6,500 per person, per farmer. Some are more, some are less. The most a person could get is about $125,000 from this program. That is taxed. You get a 1099 at the end of the year, so all the payments from the government go through that. So like I said, these payments are not guaranteed. You may or may not get that based on prices, but in your neighboring county, you may get higher prices, may get higher payments. It's all over the board as far as payments. Something you're more familiar with probably in Defiance County is the Conservation Reserve Program. Different types of practices that you'll see, and that's a filter strip that's in the picture. There's filter strips, field windbreaks, wetlands, hardwood tree plantings, riparian buffers along the rivers and creeks, and grass waterways. The Conservation Reserve Program has some program benefits. What a producer gets is a 10 to 15 years of annual rental payments. It can also include sign-up incentives and cost share to install the practice. So like if you're installing a filter strip, we can cost share on the grass seed, warm season, cool season grasses, things like that. All of those are dependent upon your soil types. Average rental rates in Defiance County, right around $140 to $150 per acre. Other benefits: reduces soil erosion, prevents gullies, traps sediment, protects water quality by intercepting and trapping that sediment and the nutrients as it runs off the field, creates habitats for pollinators and grassland and game birds, and also corridors for wildlife. Also sequesters carbon. So the picture there is has some pollinators in it. You can see the black-eyed Susans and the purple flowers. I'm not sure what they are. What this picture of is are grass waterways. So that's a semi-aerial view of a farm field that has grass waterways running through it. As you're driving through Defiance County, you may see things similar to that. As you're driving along and you see like the creeks and then the buffer strips and the waterways. Right now, I mean, there's ground that can be tilled, but there's still that grass strip that's going to kind of meander through it, and that's what that is a waterway. In 2016, the total acres enrolled in CRP in Defiance County was 12,273.9 acres. That's about 5% of the county's total acreage. There are 2,005 contracts that the office administers, and the payments issued, this is just the annual rental payments, it doesn't include any cost shares or incentive payments, was $1.6 million. With that, the participants, they have to control the noxious weeds, they can't harvest the area or graze the area. So there's primary nesting season is now until July 15th. So after July 15th, they can mow a certain percentage of it, but until then, it's not to be mowed, it's not to be touched. The participants work with a USDA-approved conservationist to develop a conservation plan. As I said, USDA has many different agencies. The Natural Resource Conservation Service is one. Steve Snyder, if anyone knows him, is the district conservationist in Defiance County. If somebody comes in and expresses interest in CRP, they'll tell us what they want to do, and then they go talk to Steve. And he'll help them develop the plan. He'll assist them with what they need to plant, if it's a filter strip. If we're going to do a grass waterway or a wetland, then that's where Soil and Water comes in with the engineering and the design of that structure. Also, participants, halfway through their contract, right around year 4, if it's a 10-year, year 6, if it's a 15-year, they have to perform halfway point, we'll go out and we'll look at it. Is it a warm season grass or has it turned to weeds because something's happened? If that happens, they might have to spray, they might have to reseed, but those cost share available for those practices to get that filter stripper, to get that CRP area back up to snuff, how it's supposed to look. Another thing we do, marketing assistance loans. Those are loans that are available on commodities that are stored on the farm or in a warehouse. So if you have grain bins, or you have a grain bin or on your farm, you can store your grain there. That grain is the collateral. And we can do a 9-month loan for the grain that you have stored on your farm. Low interest rate is 1.875, and that's a fixed rate for 9 months. A lot of producers will use that for operating expenses. They can come and get it now, have it for 9 months. We have, in 2016, we had 6 loans in Defiance County, totaling $526,000. Another thing that we can do loan-wise is the farm storage facility loans. These are the structures that you can actually put on your farm. The grain bins, the hay buildings. I'm not going to go through all the different structures, but you see people as you're driving by, there's grain bins, there's maybe a hay building, anything like that. A silo, a bunker silo. They changed the program. Now we can do certain types of trucks for hauling your grain. We can do bulk tanks for milk, honey, and maple sap. It can be new or used equipment, grain dryers, all grain systems, anything like that. Interest rates, you can see them on the screen there. Interest rates are a lot cheaper than what you would find at another source. The interest rates, terms are there. Currently in Defiance County, we have 10 farm storage facility loans. I believe all of those are for grain bins or grain bin systems. When those loans were dispersed, they totaled $1.9 million. Currently, outstanding balances is just over $1 million. So there's stipulations with any loan, but that's, the farmers can come, they can get loans for that sort of thing, pay it back in an annual payment. Next thing we have is a non-insured assistance program. This is for crops that you cannot get crop insurance for. So like your specialty farmers, things like that, that are, I'm just thinking like tomatoes, sweet corn, any kind of vegetables, hay, there's a whole list of them. Apples, blueberries, cherries, sunflowers, potato, any crops grown for food, forage, and hay. You can also get it for honey, turf, mushrooms, floriculture, if you're interested in growing flowers and selling the bulbs. It's covered. Okay. When you have a policy like that on those specialty items, the eligible cause of loss have to be Mother Nature related. So drought, freeze, hail, it's all natural occurrence. So encourages producers to be good stewards of their crop. If you ignore your crop, it doesn't count. We're going to say you weren't a good steward of your crop, and that's why it failed. It wasn't because of the weather. This is a little overview of what FSA does. Does anybody have any questions? Pretty much covered.
What constitutes a farm? How many acres?
There is no stipulation on the acres. So if you have a 2-acre plot and you have your house on a half an acre and then you're planting corn or you find somebody to plant corn in the back 1.5 acres, and you would come in the office to report it, we would draw it out and you could report that acreage as a crop.
So then you could get a low interest loan, right?
On that crop, yeah.
Yeah. But like for the facility loans, we would use your history from the last 3 years to determine how large of a storage facility that we would loan you for. So like if you only farm 3 acres, we're not gonna loan you money to build a commercial elevator. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
What is the plan for the, does FSA have a plan, I should say, for the CRP programs that expire September 30th this year? Do they have any plan as far as what percentage they think they want to, would they be increasing what to allow in it or decreasing what to allow to be in the programs or?
Okay. The Conservation Reserve Program has a 24 million acre cap nationwide. We are very near that cap. Okay. So what's happening is we have what's called a batch process right now. The contracts that we have that will expire on September 30th, there's 255 in Defiance County. Those producers right now, or within the next month, are going to be called and asked, do you want to continue, do you want to re-enroll, or do you want to be done? Because when that 10-year contract ends, they can be done if they want to be. So if they want to re-enroll, then we're going to have them come in and sign the paperwork to be re-enrolled. We have about 50 people that have contacted us that want to enroll new ground. They're going to come in, they're going to tell us what they want to do. If they want to put filter strips in, warm season, cool season grasses, wetlands, water, whatever it is. They're going to come in, they're going to talk to us, and we're going to start the process. We're going to get them in the batch, and hopefully October 1st comes along and everybody that wants to be in is in.
They're going to give first priority to the ones that are expiring or not?
We were told that that those acres are like a place setter. That those people, if they expire, are going to be able to stay in if they want to. That's what we were told last fall. Right now, we're being told just start the process, get it moving, and hopefully nobody gets kicked up.
What would be the length of the contract? Would those be 15-year contracts
They could be 15 years or 10 years.
at the owner's option?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What happens if you have a bunch of CRP ground and you want to build a house on some of it or something? Is there a penalty for getting out of that?
There is a penalty to get out of it. If someone dies, like if you inherited a farm that was in CRP, at the time of that person's death, that CRP could be withdrawn with no penalties. Okay. If you decide that you want to take that CRP and you want to build a house on it, then you're going to come and you're going to tell us what you want to do. We'll figure out how much ground that you're taking out, and then there'll be penalties based on the amount of acreage you're taking. So if the rental rate, was $150 an acre, you're going to pay back $150 an acre plus liquidated damages, which is 25% of the annual rental rate. And you're going to pay back that annual rental rate from the time you sign the contract up. So like if you're 11 years in to a 15-year contract, then you're going to pay 11 years times
The money you got.
those acres. So yeah, it's conducive. If you can wait till the contract ends, it's a little better. But as ground changes hands, as farms are sold, people can succeed to a contract. Like if you would buy a piece of ground that's in CRP, you can decide, I want to keep it in CRP or I don't. Okay? As the new landowner, if you decide you want to keep it, then you just continue on with the contract and you get those annual payments. If you decide that you don't want to continue, depending on how your purchase contract is written, you may pay back you may be paying back those fees and those annual rentals from the beginning of time, or the person that you bought it from would have to pay that money back.
Somebody will be paying.
Somebody will be paying it back. And if you've ever had a debt to the government eventually it'll come against your taxes if you don't pay it. So, yes.
Do you have anything to do with water? We have 4 mega farms within 6 miles right in the east-west, and they use millions and millions of gallons of water. Do you have anything to do with them getting a license to build those mega farms or anything?
That is, I believe all licensing is through ODA,
For the large facilities.
for the large facilities.
What facilities?
It's through the Ohio Department of Agriculture, all the licensing for those, the compound compact buildings, but they're not sure what they're called.
The large.
Yeah.
I get scared that our aquifer down through here is going to get drained, and then we'll say, "Huck that, we should have did something," and I was wondering if anybody was doing anything about all that.
ODNR has looked into it on a couple occasions. It's challenging.
I was on the road for, I think, 46 years, and I always marveled flying over Kansas, those great big irrigation units, about 4 per.
Yeah.
Now they're out of water.
Well, if you've
It's
done any
raining.
research on that, the aquifer, I don't remember the name of the aquifer, but it goes from like the Dakotas all the way down into Oklahoma. It's terrifying.
It's terrifying.
It's
right.
terrifying because they're pulling water out and it's not being replenished.
Well, I'm terrified for our area.
So, does anybody else have any questions?
Well, good afternoon. Thank you again for having both Wendy and me be part of the presentation. It's great kind of celebrating agriculture. Last week was National Ag Week. Agriculture's a large component of our community. There's no question about it. And it's a great opportunity, and that's where the soil and water comes in. One of our primary goals is working with the ag community, and with soil and water, that's the 2 components we're primarily looking at. We want to make sure that we're maintaining quality water, not only for drinking, aquifers, but also recreation. At the same time, making sure our soils are healthy. If we've got good, healthy soils, we can sustain our agriculture production. Good soils also help result in better water quality. So a lot of it really meshes together nicely. As far as stats in Defiance County, 79% of our land is in production agriculture. So it only makes sense that we want to be part of that and want to make sure that we're conserving those resources. In addition, agriculture is the #1 employer in Defiance County, so that's huge. And it's also the #2 contributor of gross county product. So ag is a very significant portion of the county's economy and the culture. It's a great culture, and it's good to see, and it's something we want to make sure we continue to move forward, and making sure that people understand the role that agriculture plays. Sometimes agriculture gets put in the less than ideal light, especially when we're looking at some of the water quality issues. And that's something we work with, as well as with some of the conservation programs. But really, when we look at what ag's done through the conservation programs, through their own initiatives, we see fertilizer use has decreased. We are putting lots of practices in, edge of the field practice, agronomic practices, things to address the water quality concerns. Ag contributes some, yes, but ag is also stepping up and doing its part to help control that nutrient. So and we don't ever want to get into finger pointing game when it comes to water quality. We're all a component of the water quality equation, and water quality is very important. Everybody's got a role in the improving water quality. So that's ultimately where we're kind of coming from. And just the other week, we set some new, kind of altered our priorities a little bit, but still, at the end of the day, soil and water are going to be our 2 #1 goals that we look at. One of the steps to do that is looking at nutrient and manure management. We can make sure that the nutrients that are being applied to the landscape, the manure is being applied properly, and this can definitely be done. It's done over time, and the vast majority of folks out there are doing a fantastic job of making sure that happens. We also are involved in infrastructure for our area. Just in the village here alone, I know drainage issues come up quite a bit. We've been involved with some of the drainage projects there, but we're involved with drainage throughout the county. We'll look at that briefly. Conservation, education, and outreach. In order to keep everyone in the community apprised of conservation practices, just whether it's agriculture related, recycling, we're out there, we're putting the word out. We have a series of newsletters. We've got an employee who is in the classrooms a fair amount of the time, teaching students about conservation and making sure that that message not only goes to the students, but is taken with them back home and eventually down the road to future generations. We're also involved in soil health, that's critical. Land use planning, we'll take a look at that. And then forestry, wildlife, and woodlands, because that all ties back into our natural resources. And that can also tie in nicely to some of the programs that Wendy had talked about here. Just a few of the items. These are some of the individual projects we work on when we look at the nutrient manure management. You've probably heard the 4R nutrient stewardship. And really what that's all about is making sure that we're selecting the right source of nutrients. And with that, then making sure that they're applied at the right rate, at the right place, and the right time. And that's really, it seems sometimes common sense, but that's really the focus, is making sure that those nutrients are going on when they're needed, and really where. And that's something we're seeing more and more with some of the programs that we're looking at. Is the goal really is to get those nutrients, when possible, injected into the soil. That keeps some of the nutrient movement to a minimum. So that's really what we're talking about, the right place, right time, as close as we can get that to crop needs. That limits the chance of those nutrients moving off the soil as well. Another important component of that is cover crops. You've seen the cereal rye, maybe you've smelled some of the radishes. They're a great tool. Radishes, if you're not familiar, late winter, they will die, they'll start to rot. And they sometimes do a little bit of fermenting, and sometimes people claim that it smells like a natural gas leak. So it tends to get people a little excited from time to time. But they are a very good tool. The smell only lasts for a short amount of time. But the goal is that we're building soil structure. We're keeping that soil alive. The one thing we don't want to do is have a soil that's barren throughout a good portion of the year. When we're raising crops, and actually what you find is there's a lot of microorganisms in the soil, and as plants are growing, they're actually feeding those microorganisms. They're actually taking some of the sugars they're producing and growing fungus on the roots. The fungus then help release nutrients, so it's a kind of a mutual partnership there. But when those plants are no longer growing, your soil structure starts to decrease. You don't keep that active biology going in the soil, and that all helps play a part of producing a high-yielding crop. So cover crops are very important, help to keep nutrients in the field, and they also help to hold the soil in place. So, and these numbers you see up here, these were from 2016, so these are some of the district projects that we've had. So in 2016, we had just about 4,400 acres of cover crops that came through our office. Senate Bill 1, I'm sure most of you have heard of Senate Bill 1, that's the restriction on fertilizer application on snow-covered frozen ground. And that's something that went into effect about a year ago, so we've been involved with that, also with the Ag Pollution Abatement Program. So anytime there's any concerns or issues, we are the first ones out there to address those situations. VRT, variable rate technology. Once again, agriculture really is leading in precision technology. The amount of technology that goes into this precision technology, because what we're doing is we're using GPS coordinates, we're using GPS technology, and with the real-time application, that nutrients can be applied variable rate to match the soil levels that are needed in very small areas. So back prior to this technology, maybe a whole 40-acre field might get applied with a set rate of fertilizer. Now that can be down to small, very small areas, automatically adjusted on the equipment, and that makes sure that nutrients are only applied where they're needed at the rates they're needed. So very important technology. Gypsum, that's a soil amendment. That helps to keep some of the phosphates and the reactive phosphate in place. Also helps to increase soil permeability. Anytime we can increase the permeability of soil, allow that water to percolate down through the soil, we're doing a lot of benefits. So that's where the gypsum comes in as well. And then with manure management, with these restrictions and to make sure that these nutrients are applied at the proper time, we need to make sure that facilities have the capability of storing the manure, or hence the nutrients. So whether you're using a commercial fertilizer or a manure, it's still supplying the essential nutrients we need to grow a crop. So that's where some of these animal waste storage facilities are critical. That allows those wastes to be stored until soil conditions are proper, that they can be applied. And this is an example of one of the programs, the Platte Creek NRP program, and this would be just to the east of us here. And this is a grant, and this is a little different than some of the FSA programs, but it allows us to get into some of the agronomic practices. And once again, you can read down through there, I'm not going to go through it all, but cover crops, the VRT, gypsum, and really I think the thing to look at, and something we're really focused on, is what are these practices doing? And these load reductions are for the complete project, but we're looking at potentially reducing nitrogen loads by 34,000 pounds per year. And you can see 4,000 tons of sediment a year. So that's really kind of the ultimate number we're looking at is how can these practices affect the water quality? And these estimates are pretty telling of that. And right there's that watershed. Sherwood's over here, Mark Center's right there. So if the farmers that are in here, this program does continue through next year, so if you do have some ground in this watershed, there may be some practices that would be well suited in that watershed. Another thing I talked about, the drainage. Drainage is very important, not only for crop production, but for residential, as well as industrial business sites. We are in what was once the Great Black Swamp. So with that, we have a petition process that we use through the office, and we've had 202 projects go through over the years, and our maintenance department maintains 356 miles of projects throughout the entire county. Education is another very important component, as I discussed, and a lot of these are classroom presentations. Sometimes we take large school groups out to like Augley's Village, do a lot of conservation programs out there with other partners, do some teaching of educators so they can then go back to the classrooms and teach the conservation message as well. And then we also hold ag retailer meetings and just any opportunity we can to get out, spread the conservation word, let folks know what some of the new programs, what some of the new guidelines are, and then ways to make sure that the practices we're putting out there are having a meaningful effect. One new component of our conservation education program this year is the Cletus Vetter Memorial Scholarship Fund. And Cletus was one of our board of supervisors, a great steward of the land, and a great leader for the soil and water. With his passing back in 2015, it was decided that it would be a great opportunity to keep his legacy going. And the district is offering, we'll be offering at least one, if not a couple $1,000 scholarships, depending on the funding that comes in. Right now, we're well over $21,000 have been raised, and for every $25,000, and this is in partnership with the Defiance Area Foundation, we will be able to provide a perpetual $1,000 scholarship to a student involved in agriculture or conservation. Just a great way to keep that legacy going, and really to keep a strong ag background and education component in the county. So I would highly encourage anyone to be interested. It'd be a great opportunity. Funds are still can be donated to the Defiance Area Foundation. Great cause, and we really look forward to getting the process started, where we'll start administering some of these grants or scholarships. This kind of relates back to what Wendy talked about, some of the CRP conservation practices. We've got a pretty good partnership with the office where FSA takes care of the administration, NRCS does some of the initial planning, and Soil and Water does a lot of the technical work out in the field, some of the engineering design. And you can see here what the grass waterways we're putting in. Those are to address erosion, and there's a couple just down the road here. We get into more of those as we head north of here a little bit. But once again, making sure that soil stays in place, it's not being carried off and carried to Lake Erie. Wetlands are another good component, not only for water quality improvements, but for wildlife habitat. And then drainage management structures. If you've ever seen some of these boxes that are located on a tile outlet, those are, we've had those for, I'd say, about 10 years now. We've really been using those. And there's well over 250 of those in the county. And essentially what we're doing is storing some of that water that would otherwise run out of the tile system. And by holding that back during the non-growing season, we're able to reduce the nutrient loadings anywhere from 40 to 68%. So it's a good tool. It also allows for holding back water during the drier summer months. So it's kind of a win-win situation for a lot of these tile outlets. So it does definitely help with some of the nutrient concerns and also can improve to be a yield increaser. And then also we've got the Upper Maumee Watershed Water Quality Monitoring Program. It's a volunteer program. That's been going for the last 2 years, where Stephanie Singer with our office kind of heads up a group of volunteers collecting water samples on some of the tribs. And this is something that's been very successful. We're looking as we move forward here to secure some more funds for longer term monitoring. It's a good option, a good opportunity to see where some of these subwatersheds rate on the water quality. And it allows us to target some practices in the watersheds that maybe are showing a little more concern. And it also gives us a benchmark and a baseline to judge how improvements are being made with some of these practices that are going in. Land use planning, throughout any of the township, zone townships, we also work on site reviews. And relating back to ag, one of the big factors we look for is making sure that a new home isn't obstructing tile drainage for ag. Also, we're making sure that these homes aren't going to flood, making sure that septic systems are going to work properly, and that they have an adequate outlet that's not causing issues with some of the infrastructure that ag has in place. So that's another service that the district offers. And then the last component is, making sure that with some of these practices, we're building in wildlife. Pollinators been a big push here lately with the monarchs and honeybees. And those are things that are very compatible with the other uses with some of these conservation practices, and making sure that we can keep the pollinators and wildlife well protected in some of those areas. We do offer some grass seeder drills, tree planters for rental to assist with installing some of these practices. And at the same time, we do offer an annual tree sale as well, so that's something that's going on right now. But just gives a good opportunity for us to look at the soil and water concerns throughout the entire community, and gives us the ability to work with lots of different partners throughout the county. I don't know if there's any questions on any, I'm going to skim through that fairly fast, so if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take. All right. Well, thank you very much.